know the exact feeling. I mean, it is without a doubt one of the most uniquely frustrating experiences in the world. You're standing in line at a busy coffee shop, or maybe you're sitting in this crucial cross-departmental meeting at work, and in your head, your English is absolutely flawless.
Oh, totally. You have the exact vocabulary queued up.
Right. The grammar rules are locked in. You know exactly the point you want to make. But then it's your turn to speak. You open your mouth and, well, you just freeze. Or worse, the words start sort of stumbling out and suddenly you feel like you sound like a choppy, malfunctioning robot. The eloquent person in your head just does not match the person speaking in the room.
Yeah, it's an incredibly common, honestly, almost universal wall that language learners hit. It's that painful, seemingly insurmountable gap between mental comprehension and physical execution. The brain is totally ready, but the body just refuses to cooperate.
And that is exactly what we are tackling today. Welcome to this special deep dive on the English Prime channel. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake.
We are going through some truly eye-opening material today for you, the listener, who has felt that exact paralyzing frustration. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore a surprising, honestly kind of liberating truth found in these sources, which is that speaking English is not just a mental exercise. It's a highly physical, muscular activity.
It really is.
Yeah, so today we're going to walk through a custom 5-minute daily workout designed to train your lips, your tongue, and your jaw to actually do the physical labor of speaking.
Because we so often ignore the absolute physical reality of language. We treat learning English like, I don't know, downloading a software update into a computer.
Right, just installing a file.
Exactly. You sit there, you memorize the vocabulary list, you study the syntax, you pass a written test, and you just expect the verbal output to be flawless. But human beings are not hard drives. We are biological machines.
Yeah.
Our bodies have to physically adapt to produce new sounds.
But before we get into the actual workout to fix the freeze, before you can stop feeling like that choppy robot, we really have to look at why the mouth starts working even when the brain is fully loaded with all the right words.
Yeah, the sources bring up this brilliant concept of the sleepy mouth or the lazy mouth.
Yeah.
And to understand this, just think about your native language for a second. You have been speaking it your entire life.
Right.
The muscles in your face, your jaw, your tongue, your vocal cords, they have spent decades moving in very specific, highly optimized, deeply ingrained patterns to create the sounds of your mother tongue.
They are essentially entirely wired for one specific sport. They sit in this deep, comfortable rut, you know? Your tongue knows exactly where to rest against your teeth when you aren't talking, and it knows the exact micro movements required to speak your native language with zero conscious effort.
Precisely. Your mouth is a master of efficiency at your first language.
Yeah.
But English requires completely different biomechanical movements. It has a totally different rhythm and entirely different mouth shape.
Oh, for sure.
English relies heavily on things like soft T sounds or the dreaded TH sound, where the tongue has to actually come out between the teeth, plus all the silent letters, and linking consecutive words together in a way that your native language might actively avoid. So when your brain suddenly commands, "Speak English," your mouth is still physically operating under the rigid rules of your native language. The hardware just doesn't match the software.
There is a specific analogy from the text that perfectly captures this, and it honestly changed how I view language learning entirely. So imagine you decide you want to learn how to do a push-up. You go to the library and you read 100 books about push-ups.
Okay.
You study the biomechanics of the human arm. You memorize exactly what the pectoral muscles and triceps are supposed to do at every single angle of the descent. You even take and ace a written multiple choice test on the theory of push-ups.
But you have never actually gotten down on the floor and tried to lift your own body weight.
Exactly. And then one day, you were at the gym and someone says, okay, show me a push-up. You get down on the floor, you bend your arms, and you immediately collapse flat on your face.
Yeah, a complete wipeout.
Right. And why did that happen? It's not because you're stupid. It's not because you forgot the theory or the biomechanics. It is simply because your physical muscles are completely weak and untrained for that specific movement. When you are failing to find your words in English, you aren't failing because you lack intelligence or because your memory is bad. Your mouth muscles are literally just untrained for the physical sport of speaking English.
And that realization changes the entire paradigm of how we approach language learning. Speaking is a deeply physical act of coordination. The brain chooses the words, absolutely. but the mouth has to carry them out.
And it has to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and if the physical muscle memory isn't there, your confidence instantly dies the very moment you hear your own voice struggling to form the unfamiliar sounds. The friction between what you want to sound like in your head and what you actually sound like out loud, it creates immediate anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's that sudden spike in anxiety that causes the mental freeze. Your brain panics because your body is failing.
Which means we have to hit the gym. But for your face, if speaking is reliant on physical muscle memory, we have to start training it exactly like we would train for a 5K run or a weightlifting competition.
Exactly. Since we've firmly established that speaking relies on this physical muscle memory, we must start by warming up those exact physical muscles before doing any heavy lifting. I mean, you wouldn't try to sprint a marathon without stretching your hamstrings first. You shouldn't try to speak a foreign language without waking up your facial articulators.
So, according to the sources, this initial warm-up only takes 1 minute of the 5-minute routine, but it is entirely non-negotiable. It consists of 4 distinct physical movements. First, lip rolls. This is where you blow air through your closed lips so they vibrate and buzz rapidly.
Kind of like a motorbike or a horse exhaling.
Yes, which feels completely ridiculous to do.
It does, but that is actually a massive part of its benefit. The vibration physically breaks the muscular tension around your mouth, but making that silly sound also breaks your psychological shyness.
I mean, it is really hard to take yourself too seriously or maintain a sense of crippling perfectionism when you're sitting in your room buzzing your lips like a toddler.
So true.
Second on the warm-up list is tongue stretches. You deliberately push your tongue out of your mouth as far as it can possibly go, hold it, and then pull it back in. Third is jaw loosening. Basically, opening your mouth incredibly wide, like an exaggerated massive yawn, just to release the hinge of the jaw. And finally, smile stretches. Holding a massive, exaggerated, ear-to-ear smile for a few seconds.
If you look at what's actually happening inside your face when you get nervous to speak in a second language, the anatomy of stress is fascinating. The tongue and the jaw hold an incredible amount of our physical anxiety.
Like when you clench your teeth?
Exactly. When you panic about your English, your jaw instinctively clenches shut. Your tongue tenses up and pulls back toward your throat in this defensive posture. By deliberately stretching them out, yawning and buzzing your lips, you are sending a physiological signal to your nervous system that you are safe and relaxed. At the same time, you are rushing fresh blood flow to the exact articulators you need to rapidly make English sounds.
Okay, so our mouth is physically warmed up, the blood is flowing, the jaw is loose. But there is a psychological tension that is much harder to stretch out. That awful feeling of being watched and judged. The sources address this next with a mirror technique, which takes another minute. The suggestion is to look directly into your own eyes in a mirror and repeat a strong sentence, something like, "I'm learning to speak confidently 5 times, getting slightly faster with each repetition."
It is an incredibly powerful psychological exercise.
I really have to push back on this one, though. Doesn't looking in the mirror make people significantly more self-conscious? When I feel awkward doing something new, the absolute last thing I want to do is watch myself doing it. I feel like staring at my own mouth, struggling to form foreign vowels, would just severely spike my nervousness. Why not just practice with our eyes closed in a dark closet where no one, not even ourselves, can see us?
Yeah, that is a very natural reaction. And you aren't wrong. It is highly intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But the reason it is intimidating is because we all harbor a deep fear of being perceived. When speaking English, learners are terrified of the internal question, how do I look to other people right now?
Right. You worry you look foolish, or that your mouth is moving in weird, unnatural ways, or that people are literally just staring at your lips while you struggle.
Practicing in the dark avoids that fear, but it doesn't cure it. The mirror technique is basically a form of exposure therapy. It forces you to confront that fear of perception head-on, but in a totally controlled, safe environment. By forcing visual awareness of yourself speaking, you desensitize your own brain to the visual stimuli of your face, making these new, strange shapes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, over a few days of doing this, the mirror slowly transforms from an intimidating judge into a quiet, supportive coach. You watch yourself and eventually realize, oh, I don't look ridiculous, I don't look stupid, I just look like a normal person speaking a language.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you frame it as exposure therapy. You're systematically building up an immunity to your own self-judgment. If you can handle looking at yourself making mistakes, You can handle a barista looking at you.
Exactly.
Okay, so our physical muscles are loose and our visual fear is taking a backseat. We are 2 minutes into our 5-minute workout. Now we have to start actually moving the mouth to the unique musical rhythm of English.
Right. This is where we start laying down the actual neural pathways for the language. The next phase is shadow speaking, and the routine dedicates 2 full minutes to this.
Shadowing is a concept that pops up in language learning a lot, but the way our sources describe it is highly specific. You don't just listen and repeat later. You listen to a short 5 to 10-second audio clip of a fluent speaker, and you repeat it immediately, almost talking over them.
Yeah, right on top of them.
And you aren't just repeating the dry words, you are mimicking the exact rhythm, the speed, the pitch, the tone, and even the emotion of the speaker.
The reason shadow speaking is so effective is because it completely bypasses the translation center of your brain.
Wait, how is that physically possible? I feel like when I try to speak a second language, my brain literally cannot let words out of my mouth until I've mentally spell-checked them in my native language first. There is a whole assembly line up there.
That assembly line is exactly the problem. Normally, when you speak a second language, you think of a concept, you send it to the translation box in your head to convert it to English, you run it through a grammar checker to make sure the tenses are right, and then finally, you send the signal to your mouth to say it out loud.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is a slow, clunky, exhausting cognitive process. Shadowing forces your auditory processing and your motor cortex to work simultaneously, skipping the translation box entirely. You catch the sound wave with your ear, and your mouth physically recreates it before your logical spell-checking brain have time to interfere.
So you are basically short-circuiting the overthinker in your head.
Exactly. It is precisely how babies learn their first language. Babies do not study grammar books. They don't have a translation filter. They just rely on mirror neurons. They mimic the music, the pitch, and the raw sounds of their parents' voices until the physical act of making those sounds becomes second nature. They are mimicking the melody before they even understand the lyrics.
They're essentially tiny sound sponges. And by shadowing, you are forcing your adult brain to revert to that sponge state. Which brings us to the final minute of the workout, the fluency loop. This is where I really saw the mechanics of how to solve that choppy robot problem we talked about at the very beginning.
Oh yeah, the choppy robot syndrome is a direct symptom of isolating words. In school, we are taught to read word by word, left to right, with spaces in between them. So naturally, we try to speak word by word.
Right. In a textbook, a sentence is printed clearly like, I am going to the store. So the learner's mouth tries to hit every single word like it's a separate drum beat. I am going to the store. But native speakers do not talk like that at all.
No, they don't. Native speech is liquid. It bleeds together, and that is exactly what the fluency loop addresses. You take one simple sentence and you repeat it out loud at 3 specific speeds. First, you say it incredibly slowly, allowing your tongue and lips to physically feel the precise mechanics of every single sound. Then, you say it at normal speed, a comfortable conversational pace. And finally, you push it to a fast speed.
And it is that fast speed where the mechanical magic really happens. By pushing the speed from normal to fast, your mouth physically cannot isolate the words anymore. It is biologically impossible to keep the spaces between the words when you are speaking quickly.
Right, you just don't have the time.
Exactly. Your mouth is forced to start creating what the sources call sound clusters. You start grouping 3 to 6 words together in a continuous physical flow just to survive the speed. The rigid phrase, I am going to, naturally melts and morphs into, I'm gonna.
The speed forces phonetic efficiency. Your tongue is essentially lazy. It wants to find the absolute shortest, most efficient physical path through the sounds. When you force it to go fast, it drops unnecessary consonants and links vowels together, which naturally perfectly matches the music and the linking that native speakers use intuitively. You repeat the slow, normal, fast loop 3 times. It actively trains your mouth to glide over the sentence as a single unit of sound rather than stepping on each word like it's a separate stepping stone.
It is like turning a jagged staircase into a smooth slide. Suddenly, you aren't a robot anymore. You are flowing. So if we look at this entire 5-minute routine, it is remarkably simple and targeted. 1 minute of weird face warm-ups to break tension and get blood flowing. 1 minute of staring down your fear in the mirror with a strong sentence to build psychological immunity. 2 minutes of shadowing an audio clip, matching the emotion to bypass your internal translator. And 1 minute of the fluency loop, pushing a sentence from slow to fast to physically force your mouth to create smooth sound clusters, 5 minutes total.
Which leaves us with a rather glaring question. If this muscular routine only takes 5 minutes a day, and it is demonstrably this effective at building physical muscle memory, why don't more people actually do it?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If it's this easy, why is everyone still stuck staring at a grammar textbook wondering why they can't speak?
Because of the final and perhaps most difficult barrier of all, which is the internal fear of looking and sounding silly. That fear destroys consistency. People will try the lip rolls once, feel stupid, and just never do it again.
We really need to talk about the real, tangible cost of this fear, because the sources highlight something deeply profound here. The fear of making mistakes is expensive. We usually think of fear as just a bad internal feeling, like an uncomfortable emotion. But it is actually an active thief in your life. It steals real-world opportunities.
It absolutely does. When you let the fear of sounding imperfect or the fear of stumbling over a word stop you from speaking, you are paying a massive compounding tax on your life. It is the senior job interview you didn't even bother applying for because you doubted your spoken English could handle the pressure. It is the potential friendship you didn't make at an international conference because you chose to stay quiet in the corner during the networking break.
Let's paint a picture of how this actually plays out. You are sitting in a meeting, a problem comes up. You know the exact solution, you have the perfect idea, but as you start to translate it in your head, you worry about how you are going to pronounce a specific technical word.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. You hesitate. You mentally rewrite the sentence to avoid the hard word. And by the time you finally build up the courage to open your mouth, a colleague has already changed the subject. You swallow the thought, and nobody ever knows how smart you are. The fear keeps you trapped in the identity of the passive learner.
And the passive learner is a very comfortable but incredibly dangerous place to be. The passive learner will happily sit on the couch and watch 3 hours of English grammar videos on YouTube. They will highlight a textbook. They will feel highly productive because they are consuming information. But they never actually move their mouth. They consume endlessly, but they never physically produce.
Contrast that with the fluent learner. The fluent learner understands that language is not a subject to be studied, it is an action to be performed. They might only have time to study for 5 minutes a day, but they spend those entire 5 minutes consistently repeating sentences out loud, moving their facial muscles. They are entirely willing to look silly, buzz their lips, and stumble over words alone in their bedroom so that they can be hyper-competent and confident in the boardroom.
The defining factor here is consistency. This is physical training, not a cramming exercise. You cannot do this 5-minute workout for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon and expect your mouth to be fluent by Monday.
That would just leave you with a very sore jaw.
Exactly. Muscle memory requires frequent, low-stress, daily repetition. The sources emphasize that just 30 days of this consistent routine, 5 minutes a single day, will fundamentally begin to take English out of your head and put it into your mouth. The neural pathways connecting your brain to your jaw will thicken, the facial muscles will physically adapt to the new shapes, and the actual physical act of speaking will require significantly less cognitive load.
Which is the ultimate goal. If speaking requires less physical effort, it means you have more raw brain power left over to actually think about what you want to say instead of panicking in real time about how your mouth is going to say it. You finally stop fighting your own face.
You achieve synergy between the mind and the muscle.
So let's bring all of this together for you, the listener. We have covered the biomechanics, the psychology of the mirror, and the cognitive bypass of shadowing. But the core message to take away today is incredibly simple. Stop treating English like a historical textbook you have to memorize, and start treating it like a physical workout you have to perform. Your brain might possess a massive vocabulary, but if your mouth hasn't put in the physical reps, you are going to freeze when the pressure is on.
Commit to the 5-minute routine. Warm up the physical muscles. Break your visual fear with the mirror. Bypass your translation brain with shadowing. And eliminate the choppy robot syndrome by forcing speed with the fluency loop.
Do it every single day. Let the weirdness, the mistakes, and the exaggerated facial expressions happen in the total privacy of your own home so that the effortless confidence can happen out in public. You build the fluency in the shadows so you can shine in the light.
Taking a step back and looking at the logic of all this muscular training, it leaves us with something quite profound to consider about how we judge ourselves and others.
I really like the direction this is heading. What is the final philosophical thought we are leaving them with today?
Well, think about it. If speaking a language fluently is ultimately just a matter of trained physical muscle memory and environmental adaptation, What if the perfect native accent that so many learners endlessly, agonizingly chase isn't actually a sign of superior intelligence or elite linguistic mastery at all?
Oh, wow. That flips the script completely.
Right. What if a native accent is simply the physical shape of a mouth adapting to its most frequent environment? The muscles in a native speaker's face just formed around the specific sounds they needed to make every single day to survive, connect, and communicate in their specific hometown. It is purely a biological adaptation to an environment. It is not a moral victory. It doesn't make them smarter than you.
That is incredibly freeing. So, how might realizing that the perfect accent is nothing more than environmental muscle memory change the way you judge your own unique, evolving accent? If your current accent is just the beautiful physical proof of the journey your mouth has taken, battling its way from your first language to your second, well, maybe it is not a flaw you need to rigidly fix. Maybe it's just a physical muscle you get to train to make it stronger, smoother, and more uniquely yours. Something to chew on while you are buzzing your lips and doing your warm-ups tomorrow morning.